Hey, are you getting ready to buy a home in Florida? You're looking up and down the Gulf Coast. You want to make sure you make a good choice. And the good thing is that there's lots of choices for you out there. Inventory is building a little bit. So as a buyer, you can take your time. You can investigate a little bit further and you don't have to make a quick decision on a property. And one thing that's a concern to a lot of people is buying in a flood zone or near a flood zone. So in this video, what I want to do is I want to share some basic information about purchasing near a flood zone so that you know what to look for when it comes time to buying a home. Hi everybody, this is Dave Zachos, Zachos Realty Design. I've lived and worked on this area for many, many years. I used to be, as many of you know, a detective, a deputy, a school resource officer here for 25 years. And then when I retired from that, I got right into real estate, and I've been doing that now for 18 years. Absolutely love it. I love serving people, helping people, educating people, and that's one reason I do these videos. Sometimes there's some bad information out there, and I want to give you my knowledge, share what I've learned, and hopefully you can use that to your advantage. When a developer gets ready to develop a subdivision, they have to go through certain processes to get approval through the county and many different organizations. And part of that nowadays is the drainage plan. A developer cannot just build homes on elevations that are not approved for the current elevation to build homes. Typically, we're seeing elevations around 15, 16 feet in any new development up and down our coast. So sometimes approval has been granted to a developer to develop a large tract of land that may have some low spots, some high spots, and may have some protected areas that are preserves, wetlands, may have some lakes and ponds. And what the developer does is come up with a plan, they submit it, get approved to go ahead and start moving dirt around. And when they do that, they build up the home sites, like I mentioned before, 15, 16 feet. And as a result, the homes are now out of the flood zone. On a particular neighborhood, sometimes there may be a rare occasion that a home is not outside of a flood zone, but it's very, very rare. I have a listing in one of the neighborhoods in our area called Talon Preserve. This is a neighborhood in our area that was developed by DeVosta, and as a result, that drainage plan development had to take place, move dirt, get the home sides up to elevation. That takes place in Beach Walk and other areas like this, down in Welland Park, Lakewood Ranch. All these new developments, these large new developments, what they do as the builder is they create ponds. They interconnect the ponds. So when the rain comes down, it runs off. There's a drainage plan. It goes to the street, goes to the ponds, and then away from the community. So you can rest assured, typically, if you're buying in one of these new neighborhoods, it's not going to be in a flood zone. Now, sometimes there's errors in the mapping, and recently I put this listing on, I went and looked, and it actually showed this home in a flood zone. I thought that was very curious, because how did that take place? And when you go back in history, when it was purchased a few years back, it was not in a flood zone. There was a remapping in our area of the flood zone back in March of 2024. Some areas got deemed in a flood zone that were not, and other areas we moved out of a flood zone that were in. But typically with new development, it's not going to change over that time. So there actually was an error with the mapping in this particular development. And so if you want to make certain that you're not in a flood zone or buying close to a flood zone, what you can do is reach out to your insurance agent. I have a great one if you don't have one, and they will run it through their database. These are always updated and accurate. And if you don't have to pay flood insurance, if your insurance agent tells you, hey, there's no concern, you're not in a flood zone, you don't have to pay flood insurance, you can rest assured that if the map says you do, that there may be an error or some mix up that way. When we look at our area, there's actually 4 major flood zones that we have in our area. There's the VE, which is the velocity zone. This is typically what you're going to find on barrier islands and on the bayfronts. These are direct exposure to open water, low-lying areas where you have high flood risk and high wind risk. Inland from that, but typically along channels, canals, streams, creeks, and rivers is the AE flood zone. You may have entire neighborhoods and lower lying neighborhoods where many of the home sites are in the AE flood zone. And this can vary from a lower elevation, let's say a 9 or a 10, up to a 12 or a 13. It still may be in the AE flood zone. So take that in consideration. Nowadays, if you're around 15, 16 as your finished floor elevation, you are definitely not in a flood zone. On this one example that we thought the home came up in Talon Preserve as flood zone, I checked with the agent. They said, no, it's not in the flood zone, no flood insurance required. I obtained a survey from the seller, and sure enough, it shows the finished floor elevation at 16.62. The garage finished floor at 16.49. I put an example up in here. So ask for an elevation certificate on a property you're looking to buy, or just ask for a survey. Many times there is the elevation that is posted on the survey. If you have a concern about the elevation or the flood zone of a home, check with your agent. They should be able to do due diligence as they're representing you to find out what the actual flood zone is and the elevation of that property. You can also check with an insurance agent, and they should be able to tell you whether that property, if you give them the address, is in or out of a flood zone. Now, if flooding is a concern, which it is for most people, what you want to do is look beyond that piece of property or that home site that you're buying. Look to see if there's any lakes, ponds, streams. I'm putting an example up here that shows some lower lying areas. In Nokomis, we typically have a lot of waterfront community, and as such, these waterfront communities are typically lower. If you go upstream from the Gulf and you go up the river, up the creek, these are the areas that are designated as flood zones. And when we do have extreme weather events in our area, these are the areas that tend to flood. The water cannot run off quick enough, and as a result, they back up along these creeks. That is something that is a big concern. You should be watching out for that, not necessarily a new development where you have a wetland behind you. Now, there are times if you're looking to purchase land, parcels of land, let's say 5, 10 acres, 20 acres. I have a lot of people that move here. They want their space, they want their privacy, and they also have hobbies and different careers and different things they want to do, and they need extra, garages and that type of thing. When it comes to a vacant parcel of land, I've got an example out here. When you see from an aerial view, you're looking at darker brown, light brown circles, oval shapes like that. That typically is a sign of a low-lying wetland area. And then there's a due diligence you can do by going onto a website, and I can share that with you, that has plotted out wetlands all up and across our coast. They don't have everything plotted, but they do have the majority of them. A seller does not have to provide a vacant land disclosure, so I've had, unfortunately, some people that have come to me about selling their property because they ended up purchasing something they could not build on. Because if you do buy, let's say, a 10-acre or 15-acre parcel and it's practically all wetlands, it is extremely expensive. You can get it mitigated, and that's what these developers do when they buy these large parcels of land. What they do is they mitigate it. They submit for approval, and they're able to move land around. They're able to make areas that are out of the flood zone by expanding areas that are preserves and making larger areas that are protected. So it's a little bit complicated, but that can be done. In our area, I mentioned the VE, the AE, we have the X500, which is not in a flood zone, and we have the X, which is not in the flood zone. All right, thank you for watching. If you have any questions about any particular parcel of land or just questions in general, I'm happy to answer them. Just feel free to reach out. You can reach me on our website. I'm going to have them put a link below here. And I thank you for watching, and I look forward to speaking with you again soon. Take care. Tell you a little bit about us and why we help our clients. We realize some of you may not even know exactly what town you're going to end up in, so sometimes you cast a wide net. We have the patience and the expertise to help you find that perfect home. Whether it's Punta Gorda, Port Charlotte, Inglewood, Venice, Sarasota, to Palmetto, Parrish, Bradenton, Lakewood Ranch, sometimes it takes a little bit of time for you to rule out where you're looking and realize where you want to be. We understand that. We have the patience for that. We have the expertise to guide you and answer questions. Where you want to be on the Gulf Coast of Florida, we are your trusted advisors, and we are happy to help you answer any questions you have. Thanks for watching. I appreciate it. Look forward to speaking with you again soon. Take care. Thank you.